DJDUBL.
It's DJDUBL here, and today I'm sat with a top athlete, a world champion boxer, definitely one of the most exciting fighters in the UK, and the new guest on the show, Eubank Jr. What's happening, brother?
I'm good, man. Feeling good. It's a beautiful day out here in Brighton.
Yes, sir. So, world champion status now. Congratulations, bruv. What's your mindset now? Are you happy with your position? Are you where you want to be at this point in time?
I'm on the right path. I'm on the right track. IBO world champion. Not at the weight that I thought I was going to be. Super middleweight. Obviously, I fought most of my career at middleweight, but I'm on the right track, man. You know, there's a lot of great fights out there to be had in the super middleweight division, and you know, we got some big names coming up in the pipeline. So
exciting times, bruv. Your dad's been a very prominent part of your career, obviously as a role model, as a coach, as like a leader for you, and clearly given his status as a boxer, obviously a great person to have on your side. He gives you a lot of advice and stuff. Is there ever times when you've gone against the advice or advice that he's given, you thought, I want to try it a different way? Or do you follow everything that he puts your way?
No, he is who he is. He's done what he's done in the sport. He's a legend in the game. So the advice he gives me and the advice that he has given me throughout the years, I've always taken into consideration because of his experience. You know, he's been there and he's done it. So I always pay it in mind. I always think and try and incorporate what he's saying into what I'm doing. But at the same time, I'm my own man. So I do have to find my own path. I have to do what I think is right at the same time, because at the end of the day, it's me in that ring. It's not anybody else. It doesn't matter who's giving you. It doesn't matter who's giving you advice. It doesn't matter what's being said. At the end of the day, you're the one that's got to go in there and take those punches. So you've got to be right in yourself. You've got to be right in your own mind. But yeah, you know, the things that I've learned from my father is priceless.
Who would be your top 3 boxers today, like active boxers?
Well,
you can put yourself in there. That's all right.
Nah, I mean, you know, obviously every fighter should think that they're the best. Yeah. You know, if you don't have that mindset, then you're never going to make it. But putting me aside, actively right now, obviously, well, Floyd's come out of retirement, saying he wants to fight McGregor, so you got to put Floyd up there. Other active fighters, you know, I wouldn't say that there are specific guys that I think are the best. You know, if you're talking about like entertainment, you know, my boy Anthony Joshua, that's a guy who I'm following his career very closely. Yeah. You know, he's a good friend of mine, and you know, I want to see him succeed. I was obviously ringside when he beat Klitschko the other day. So, but to be honest, there's not too many fighters that I actually follow at the moment. You know, I'm kind of more focused on what I'm doing. So yeah, I mean, but in terms of fighters that I kind of, you know, modeled my style on and looked up to growing up, coming up in the game, fighters that I kind of tried to emulate, Roy Jones Jr, Marvin Hagler, Hearns, Leonard, fighters like those, you know, old school, you know, legends in the game. My father, you know, all these guys kind of, I used to watch them and kind of just take aspects of their fighting style and try and add them to my own. So yeah.
You get a lot of heat on social media. Like you might post something like, you might even just post up like, good morning, it's a beautiful day, let's get it. And then boom, you're a prick, you're a wanker, and all this. You get so much negativity thrown your direction from Twitter. Firstly, like, I see you respond to it sometimes, not all of it, and very occasionally, like, it might be one that catches you and you might respond to it. So I know you see it. How does it make you feel to like have that much negativity just spamming your timeline?
You know, I'm immune. Immune is the best word to describe it, because it's been like that from day one.
Did it affect you early, like from when it first started happening? Was it a bit like, well, why?
2012, 22 years old, I'm 27 now. And yeah, at first it was kind of like, wow, what's up with, you know, what's up with all this kind of, I mean, I've always had amazing fans, and I still do. And the fans outweigh the haters tenfold. But the haters, they're dedicated, man.
They are, bro. They're really there.
They're angry, and they need to be heard. You know, so I was always kind of like, what's up with that? But I've kind of learned to just embrace it. You know, these guys, these haters, these keyboard warriors, you know, they make me stronger. I've said it before. You know, these guys, they push me. They push me to want to succeed, to want to do better, to want to prove them wrong.
Do you think it's a case of, because you were born with the advantage that you were, in the sense of effectively because of who your dad is, so straight away you got to bring in, you've got access to resources and stuff, and also like a business knowledge straight away because of your dad's guidance. Not only that, I mean, effectively, if you think about it deeply as well, you've got fighters' blood in you, do you know what I mean? So it's coming down the family links. Do you think some people feel like that you didn't earn your position?
That always makes me laugh when people try and make that argument, because, you know, the truth of the matter is, this is the fight game. This is boxing. This is combat. This is two men, you know, putting their blood, sweat, and tears, putting their livelihood and health on the line. It doesn't matter what name you have. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what so-called advantages or disadvantages you may or may not have had. If you can't fight, you can't fight. You know, if you're not the real deal, you're not gonna win world titles. You're not gonna inspire the public. You're not gonna have little kids running up to you in the street taking pictures and winning titles and being called one of the most exciting boxers on earth. You know, it just doesn't happen. It doesn't matter who you are, and you can see that throughout history with all the past world champions, their sons, and a lot of them have tried. A lot of them have thought, you know, okay, my dad's done it, so I'm going to try and do it. And 99% of them have failed.
Right, yeah.
You know, I think me and my father were the first ever father and son to ever be world champions in Britain.
Right, okay.
That says it all.
Yeah.
So really, I'm actually at a disadvantage.
Right.
I don't have the advantage. The odds were completely stacked against me. It's never been done before. So, you know, it's one of those things where I just don't, it just makes me smile when people try and use that argument, oh, you've had it all your way, you've had it, you know, you're only there because of your father. My father's not taking those punches. No,
I think it's the case now that you sort of proved that that's not the case. If you follow you on Snapchat, I mean, you're training, you're in here every day. Like, I was expecting to see like a sleeping bag in the corner, you know, and the training ethic is ridiculous. I've followed you since an amateur, so I've known even back then, like the skills and the work rate's been up. But I think now you're at a place where it's like, you're on your own too. Does that make sense?
Of course. I've built my own legacy. I've walked my own path. And that's all that a fighter can do. You can't rely on anybody else. You can't rely on your father. You can't rely on your trainer. You can't rely on your team. Once you're in that ring, once that bell goes, it's just you. It's just you. There's no support. There's no help. It's do or die. And I've been doing it for the last 5 years now.
The first 3 years of your career were really busy. So you had like 18 fights, 18 wins. I think about 13 of them were knockouts as well. But again, the Eubank haters came out in force, and a lot of people sort of said that you were spoon-fed easy opponents to kind of fast-track your numbers in the pro game. What would your comments be on that?
My comment to that would be, look at any and every single professional fighter that's ever been. You look at their records and who they fought at the beginning of their career. That's how the game goes. You've got to get the experience. I only had 26 amateur fights. A lot of these guys are coming in to the pro game with 100 fights, 200 fights. I had 26. So I had to build myself. I had to get my experience in the pro game. So I couldn't start high. I had to start from the bottom and work my way up. And that's what I've been doing. And if you look at my opponents, if you look at the records, the vast majority have very good records, winning records. You know, maybe my first like 1 or 2 fights they had losing records, and then after that they were all winning records. So you know, I did what I have to do, and now we're at the stage now where I'm going to be challenging. It's 2017. This year, next year, I'm going to be challenging the best in the world. You know, this is my time now. We've got some big names in the pipeline, in talks with a couple people, and yeah, you guys are going to see some exciting fights this year. One of your professional fights that I really enjoyed, and it was kind of an early one, was Jason Ball. The reason I enjoyed it is because when I was watching it, I didn't realise you were injured at the time. And it got, I think, about halfway through the fight, and I'm thinking, he hasn't thrown the right hand. Like, this whole fight, he's just going off the left. And it was only afterwards, once you'd won the fight as well, that I found out your right hand was, like, incapacitated, and you had to fight the whole fight off one hand. Going into the fight with the injury, I mean, you must have known, I know your mindset, so you must have known you were going to win that fight. Was there ever a point where you were like, I shouldn't fight because my hand's not ready? Of course. You know, I was unable to use my right hand, and, you know, I don't know any fighter that I've never heard of any fighter going into their second professional bout.
So it was the second one, yeah.
Yeah, my second fight. It's unheard of. To go into your second pro bout knowing that you can only use one hand.
You literally beat him with one hand behind your back.
That's how confident I was in my abilities.
Yeah. And
that's how dedicated I was to the sport. You know, I got the injury in training, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to find a way. You know, this is my second fight. It's too early in my career now to be pulling out of fights. I got all this expectation on me, all these people watching, expecting, Channel 5. You know, I knew what the guy was. He was a solid fighter, but he didn't have the pedigree that I had. And you're told from day dot, you know, the number one punch in boxing is the jab.
Yeah.
The jab was with my left hand. So you know, and I was always told, that was something I was always told starting off in the amateurs. You know, you can beat a guy just off the jab. Trainers always used to tell me that, and I used to think, nah, I never believed it. And in that fight, I went into it having to believe it.
Yeah.
I was like, well, you know,
there's no choice.
now it's my time to show that theory is true.
Yeah. I feel like when it came to fighting Saunders, that was the real test for you. Like, that was a proper step up for you. There was a lot of pressure building up to that fight as well. Your mindset going into the ring that day, was it different to any of the fights you'd had previously?
Yes. It was my first 12-round fight. I'd only ever gone 8 rounds previously, and I went into that fight with the mindset of what is it going to be like in the 9th, in the 11th, you know, in the 12th. And I think that mindset caused me to pace myself too much in the early rounds.
Right.
But then once it got to like the 5th round, you know, I sat down and I was like, you know what? I'm fine. I can do this all day. This guy hasn't hurt me. He hasn't ruffled me. Let's do it. And then from that round, I just put it on him, and I dominated him. And if I'd done that from the first round, you know, it would have been a different story. There would have been no decision at the end of the fight.
When the announcement was made that Saunders won, you smirked at the time. Was that reaction like, was it a sort of built-in reaction to hide the disappointment, or what was?
I was disappointed, of course. I was, you know, it was my first loss, and and it was on a huge stage. But when you're going into fights like that, in the back of your mind, you know, it was a Frank Warren show, and Saunders is his golden boy.
Right.
So in situations like that, you know, you have to knock these guys out. If it goes to decision, they're going to give it to the home guy.
Right.
That's just how it is.
Mm-hmm.
So even in my mind, I thought I'd done enough. Slow in the early rounds, but completely dominant in the second half of the fight. Even though I thought I'd done enough to win, in my mind I was like, they're not going to give me the decision. So it wasn't a huge shock to me that when I heard them say his name, that he'd won.
Right.
That's where the smirk came from. It was kind of like, yeah, well, you know, what can you do?
Yeah. How did it affect you after the fight? Because up until that point, you hadn't been beaten. Your confidence was on like 400%. The momentum you had was crazy. Like, did it have any negative effects on you? Was there any kind of like slump, any sort of self-doubt creeping in?
No, there was never self-doubt because I was never hurt. You know, fighters doubt themselves when they get knocked out or they get, you know, beaten up badly in a fight.
Mm-hmm.
In a fight like what happened with me and Saunders, it was neck and neck, and it was neck and neck after when I hadn't even done that much in the early rounds, and it was still neck and neck. So it wasn't like, oh, this guy's a better fighter than me, oh, this guy beat me up, I'm hurt. Mm-hmm. I left that ring knowing I was a better fighter, so there wasn't any self-doubt. It was just disappointment in the fact that this guy now has a win over me. And if anything, it made me more ferocious. It made me more determined, because now it was like, okay, I got a loss on my record. Now the haters have got the fuel. I've given them a whole jet pack worth of fuel.
Running again.
So now I've got to take some of that fuel back. Mm. And that's what I've been doing since. It
feels after that fight that we kind of saw Eubank 2.0. Like I feel like I noticed the training was suddenly harder, even on like the social media stuff. It seemed like you literally were here 24/7. And your attitude towards the whole thing, it did seem to change a little bit. You seemed a little bit less cocky, but also I noticed like a lot more, not that you were never ever disrespectful, but a lot more respect towards your opponents leading up to stuff. There was obviously the banter and like the fighting talk leading up to it, but it did seem a little bit toned down, kind of more, I'd say more gentlemanly, for want of a better word. Would you think that's accurate?
I mean, you know, that's up for debate. That's everyone's opinion. Some people think I'm a gentleman, and some people think I'm an asshole. And that's fine. You know, it all depends on who I'm fighting. You know, a prime example is the fight with Nick Blackwell. Mm-hmm. There are people that thought that you know, that whole situation, how I dealt with it was, you know, outstanding. It was right, the things I said and did after the fight and how I was towards him. And there are still some people that, including him, that think that what I did was wrong and that I was disgraceful for talking about him and you know, which I can never understand. You know, obviously he came out of the coma, and he was, you know, he said how disgusted he was with the fact that we'd held a press conference, and you know, and some people sided with him. Very few, but there are some people that believe that I shouldn't have been talking about what had happened.
Yeah.
But this is the fight game. This is show business. It's
entertainment. Exactly.
Millions of people saw what happened, so it doesn't make sense for me to then. Sorry, I don't have anything to say.
Yeah, of course.
You know, if you don't want to be talked about, don't fight. Mm-hmm. You know, that's part of the game. I had a duty to, you know, to the people to.
I feel that way as well. Like, not only if you don't want to be talked about, but if you don't want to get injured, don't fight. I mean, obviously, I'd never wish anything like that to happen on anyone, But it's almost sort of, if you're stepping into a ring at a championship level, there are these risks. Like, it's happened in the past, it will happen again. I felt like because that was your first, that was like a goal for you to get the British title. And I know it was, I know you were working towards that. But then when you got it, you, because of the situation, because of him being hospitalised, you couldn't celebrate, or you couldn't be going out there and in the clubs, and now I'm the, because of that also happening. So it was a really awkward situation for you, but how you guys dealt with it, I thought was appropriate. Did you, because your dad went through a very similar thing like in '91, did he give you a lot of advice on how to handle that both publicly and mentally?
I wouldn't actually say he gave me a lot of advice. You know, it was, I mean, I already knew what had happened, obviously, in his past with Michael Watson, and I kind of just, you know, I had to just be my own man and do what I felt was right, and say the things that I thought were the right things to say. You know, it's one of those things. It's crazy that both of us were in the same situation.
Yeah.
And obviously, you know, yeah, he told me how he himself dealt with it and what he did, you know, after the fights and how it affected him. But you know, everybody's different, and he, you know, he's known for saying that it kind of, that situation took his mean streak away from him, his finishing ability, you know, because he was kind of in the back of his mind, he was always like, you know, what if it happens again? That wasn't the same for me.
I was about to ask you that, if you've had that now in your head, does it hold you back?
No, you know, if anything, it makes me fight harder, because I know now I've been involved in a situation where someone has lost his ability to box. It can be taken away from you just like that in one night. Years and years of graft and hard work, and then that's it. So now I know that that's really what can happen. It's like, I can't let that happen to me. So I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna fight as hard as I can, each and every time I get an opportunity.
What are your pre-fight rituals? What do you do in the moments leading up to the fight?
Relax. That's the only thing you can do. You know, I wouldn't say I have any rituals, and if I did, I probably wouldn't tell anybody. But the main thing is just to relax. You know, if you're constantly up and thinking about it, and you know, if you think about it too much, it can wear on you. You need to go into that ring fresh and relaxed and ready. You know, some guys tell me they have trouble sleeping before fights, and they can't eat, or you know, and that's a part of why, you know, fighters fight lesser opponents in their early careers, because they need to get, it's not just the fights, it's the build up, it's the occasion, it's the training, it's the night before, and the butterflies, and you feel sick, and you've got to go through all that. You've got to get used to that. You've got to go through that process again and again and again, to the point where you become comfortable and experienced and professional with it. And so that's why you kind of have these lesser opponents to kind of build on. So yeah, I stay relaxed.
The best result of your career is obviously the most recent one with Quinlan. You won the world title. Would you say that was your best fight? No.
That was a fight where I was coming off of a 3-month injury. So it wasn't my best performance. It was a good performance, you know. People loved the fight. He was a hell of a competitor and a tough guy, and you know, he wouldn't be stopped. He wasn't going to go out unless he went out on his shield. The referee had to stop the fight. But as far as my performance, in me, I know I could have done a lot better, even if it didn't look that way. But I did what I had to do. I always find a way.
And you finished it. So the golden question, of course, you've already mentioned it earlier, but who's next? Who's in the scope? I feel like there's 4 names there, but I want to know if there's more than 4 potentials.
Listen, at the moment, at this stage of my career, I'm just trying to fight marquee names or trying to fight for belts. So it's really any and everybody who is on at a world level or that has a belt.
Put some names into the mix, like who has the Eubank camp been discussing?
We want Saunders. We want Degale. Those are the 2 British names that I want. They don't want it. It's tough to make these fights because these guys are scared. It's embarrassing, but it's the truth. They don't want to fight. So if we can't get those names, you know, there's a few other names. Nothing's confirmed, but within the next week, we should have a solid idea of who I'm going to be fighting, and the fight should be in July.
I know the one that everyone wants to see is Golovkin. So do you think that's a possibility in this year?
I used to think that, yeah. I mean, at the beginning of the year, I would have said so, but obviously now he's fighting. He's just penned in to fight Canelo. So I can't say what's going to happen. You know, you have to wait and see the result of that. It's September. So, I mean, you know, if that fight were to happen, I'd realistically, you know, it could maybe December, but realistically probably early next year.
2018.
Yeah.
Do you plan things in advance, or are you literally just looking for the next fight, then the result of that, you'll plan the next one after that?
Boxing, people always ask me that, and you can't plan. You just can't. You have to just roll with it. You have to ride the wave. Opportunities come, they go, fighters pull out, fighters come up, then they don't want to fight, and it's just, you can't plan. You just have to live in the moment. And at any given time, opportunities arise. You know, I never thought that I'd fight for the IBO super middleweight world title, but the opportunity came at the right time, so we took the fight. So right now we're just looking for a big name, and as soon as one comes up, I'm taking it.
One question I always ask musicians is who their ultimate collaboration would be. So what I want to put it to you is, who would your ultimate fight be? Dead or alive, any boxer that you could get in the ring with, who would it be?
Who I could get in the ring with personally?
Yeah. Who would you like to fight, dead or alive?
I would love to have fought against Roberto Duran. I think just to experience what Leonard experienced. You know, that would sharing the ring with any of those legends from that era would be amazing.
It'd be a lesson, definitely. So the last thing I wanted to ask you is, there's something I feel quite strongly about, and it's off topic from your career, but in the last, I think, 2 weeks, there's been 11 stabbings in London, right, through knife crime. Now, one thing I've always thought is that if boxing was part of a curriculum and kids from an early age were taught the discipline of boxing, the skills and how to look after themselves, it would reduce knife crime. The logic behind that being that if you're out there in the streets with your gangs or whatever, a lot of them might carry knives because they can't look after themselves. Whereas if you know how to throw hands, you're less likely to carry it. Have you got any thoughts on boxing being introduced to the curriculum?
I mean, obviously, back in the day, it used to be in schools, and then they banned it, which I think is it's a huge shame, because, you know, some people see it as violent, but it's a discipline. It's no different to rugby or judo or, you know, any of these other contact sports. It's a discipline, and it teaches you. It teaches you respect. It teaches you. It teaches you how to be a man. It teaches you responsibility, which is a huge part in why a lot of these kids are, you know, are resorting to knife crime and stuff like that. They're not responsible. They don't understand responsibility. They don't understand their future. But if you give them something to, you know, be involved in, that they can see has a future, has something that can, you know, make them into a somebody, then, you know, they don't resort to, or they're less likely to resort to crime. And boxing is it, you know, especially for kids like that who are susceptible to those types of things, gang life, you know, they have a lot of energy, they have a lot of pent up aggression, they have to find ways to release it. So they release it in the wrong way. Whereas, you know, if you put them in a boxing ring, you put them in a gym, it was the same with me. I used to be in a gang. And then I started boxing. You know, you do your runs, you get in there, you spar, you hit the bags. After that, you just want to go home, play a little bit of Xbox and sleep. You don't want to go out there and live that life.
Nah.
And, you know, and fight and rob and do whatever these kids are doing these days. So boxing is it's a huge opportunity, one that I took, and that I think that should every kid in that situation would benefit from.
Mm-hmm. I feel it's like with that installed, it would go back to how like our grandparents would resolve problems. You're out there, you have a fight, whoever wins, it's put to bed. None of this stuff.
Well, I mean, even that is not, that's not what you want to push. What you want to push is, okay, we have a disagreement, let's get in the ring. Mm-hmm. Let's put the gloves on.
Well, that's kind of what I mean.
Yeah, not, you know, keep the street life out of it. You know, keep it in a controlled environment with rules and you know, and guidance. You know, okay, we don't like each other for whatever reason. I'm not going to get my brothers on you. I'm gonna use what I've been taught in my sporting life, you know, to compete against you. And whoever the better man is the better man. That's what I believe is the best solution.
There you go. Anything else you want to add for the fans, for the haters?
July. Look out for July. There's going to be a huge announcement soon, and you're going to see me back on the world stage ASAP. So watch out for Team Eubank.
Sick. Thank you for your time, brother. DJ Double here with the world champion, Chris Eubank Jr.